The US-Mexico border is a fault line. It's a place where two worlds collide, where the immense wealth of the United States runs up against the poverty and violence of Mexico's drug war. For decades, this volatile mix has fueled the rise of powerful drug cartels, organizations that operate with impunity in many parts of Mexico. The US, for its part, has a long and complicated history of involvement in Mexican affairs, often driven by a desire to stem the flow of drugs into the states. In recent years, this dynamic has led to an uneasy alliance, a collaboration born of necessity between two countries with often divergent interests. The target high-ranking members of Mexican drug cartels, men and women who occupy coveted spots on the FBI's most wanted lists. This collaboration takes many forms. It's intelligence agents in dimly lit rooms, huddled over satellite images and intercepted communications. It's heavily armed tactical teams, moving with precision in dangerous territory. It's diplomats and politicians navigating a complex web of diplomacy and national interest. The stakes are incredibly high. For the US, it's about protecting its citizens from the scourge of drugs and the violence that inevitably follows. For Mexico, it's about reclaiming sovereignty, about proving that it can bring its own criminals to justice. At the heart of this collaboration lies intelligence sharing. The US, with its vast surveillance capabilities, provides Mexico with crucial information on cartel movements, hideouts, and plans. This intelligence comes from a variety of sources. There are the spy planes, of course, unmanned aerial vehicles equipped with high-resolution cameras and sophisticated listening devices, capable of monitoring vast stretches of territory. Then there's the signal intelligence, intercepted phone calls, text messages and emails, painstakingly pieced together by analysts to provide a glimpse into the cartel's operations. Human intelligence is also crucial, informants within the cartels themselves, risking their lives to feed information to their handlers. This flow of information is not a one-way street. Mexico, for its part, brings to the table its own unique understanding of the cartels and the complex social and political terrain in which they operate. Mexican law enforcement agencies have infiltrated cartel ranks, developed informants, and gathered crucial intelligence through years of often dangerous work. They understand the local dynamics, the shifting alliances and rivalries that define the criminal underworld. This exchange of information, this constant back and forth, is crucial to the success of joint operations. Beyond the shadowy world of intelligence gathering, the US-Mexico collaboration plays out in the real world, in the mountains and deserts of Mexico's narco-trafficking heartland. Joint task forces composed of Mexican Marines, federal police and their US counterparts have carried out numerous raids and arrests, targeting cartel leaders and their operations. These operations are often fraught with risk, as the cartels are heavily armed and willing to use violence to protect their interests. The element of surprise is crucial, as is the ability to adapt to rapidly changing situations. One example of this collaboration was the capture of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the notorious leader of the Sinaloa cartel. Guzman, who had escaped from Mexican prison twice, was a prime target for both the US and Mexican governments. His capture in 2016, after a raid on a safe house in Los Mochis, Sinaloa, was the culmination of years of intelligence gathering and joint planning. It was a major victory for both countries, a symbol of what could be achieved through close cooperation. The use of US spy planes in Mexican airspace has been a contentious issue, one that highlights the sensitivity surrounding national sovereignty. Mexico has long been wary of US intervention in its affairs, and the presence of these unmanned aircraft, even for intelligence-gathering purposes, is seen by some as a violation of its sovereignty. The US, for its part, argues that these flights are essential for gathering the intelligence needed to combat the cartels, intelligence that benefits both countries. The Mexican government has acknowledged the presence of these aircraft and stated that their flights are conducted with its knowledge and consent. This suggests a level of pragmatism on the part of Mexican authorities, a recognition that they need all the help they can get in their fight against the cartels. However, the issue remains a sensitive one, a reminder of the power imbalance between the two countries and the potential for friction. Section 5. Shifting Sands, the Trump Era and Beyond. The Trump administration's approach to Mexico was marked by a mix of hostility and pragmatism. Trump's rhetoric on immigration and his insistence on building a border wall strained relations between the two countries. However, on the issue of drug trafficking, there was a recognition of shared interest and a continuation of cooperation. The Trump administration provided Mexico with increased military aid, and intelligence sharing and joint operations continued. The Biden administration has struck a more conciliatory tone, emphasizing cooperation and shared responsibility. However, the underlying challenges remain the same. The drug war is a complex, multifaceted problem, and there are no easy solutions. The US and Mexico will need to continue to find ways to work together, to build trust and share the burden of this fight. Section 6. The dollar speaks economic undercurrents. The fight against drug trafficking is not just about guns and intelligence, it's also about economics. The United States is the world's largest consumer of illegal drugs, and this insatiable demand fuels the cartel's profits. Mexico, meanwhile, struggles with poverty, corruption, and a lack of economic opportunities, factors that make it fertile ground for organized crime. The weakening of the US dollar against the Mexican peso has had an interesting effect. It has made Mexican products more expensive in the US, potentially reducing demand for some goods. However, it has also made it more profitable for cartels to smuggle drugs into the US, as they receive more pesos for every dollar earned. This economic reality underscores the complexity of the issue and the need for a multi-pronged approach that addresses both supply and demand. Section 7. Mexico's internal struggle. While the US and Mexico cooperate on the surface, Mexico faces a deep internal struggle against organized crime. Drug cartels have infiltrated many levels of government and law enforcement, undermining the rule of law and creating a climate of fear and impunity. Police officers are often outgunned and outmaneuvered by cartel members, and corruption is rampant. The effectiveness of local law enforcement varies widely across Mexico. In some areas, local police forces are relatively clean and capable, working closely with federal authorities to combat organized crime. In other areas, however, police forces are riddled with corruption and often act in collusion with the cartels. This inconsistency is a major challenge for Mexico, as it undermines the government's legitimacy and fuels public distrust. Section 8. The human cost. The fight against drug trafficking comes at a steep human cost. In Mexico, the drug war has claimed tens of thousands of lives, leaving a trail of grief and trauma in its wake. Innocent civilians are often caught in the crossfire, victims of cartel violence or heavy-handed tactics by security forces. Journalists who dare to report on the cartels are routinely threatened, attacked, or even murdered. The United States, despite its distance from the front lines, is not immune to the human cost of this conflict. The opioid epidemic, fueled in part by the flow of heroin and fentanyl from Mexico, has devastated communities across the country. The demand for these drugs has created a lucrative market for the cartels, further enriching and empowering them. Section 9. An uncertain future. The fight goes on. The collaboration between the US and Mexico in capturing high-ranking cartel members is a complex and evolving story. It is a story of shared interests and mutual mistrust, of successes and setbacks. The capture of high-profile cartel leaders like El Chapo is a testament to what can be achieved through cooperation, but it is also a reminder of the persistent challenges. The drug war is far from over. As long as there is demand for illegal drugs, there will be those willing to supply them, no matter the human cost. The United States and Mexico will need to continue to work together to strengthen their partnership and find new ways to address this enduring problem. The stakes are simply too high to do otherwise.